Okay, so to start officially, I'm going to ask you your name, where you were born, and when you were born.
Okay.
As in the year.
Okay, can I do them in reverse order?
Of course you can.
I was born in 1979, the tail end of 1979. I was born in Balfour Hospital in Kirkwall on the Orkney Islands. And my name, that's one I was forgetting, is Karl Eisenhower.
Thank you very much. And did you spend your childhood in Kirkwall?
I didn't. Well, I spent the first two, I think probably the first year or two of my life. So the bit I don't remember, on I think it was an island called Sanday that my parents had moved to, which was one of the outer islands, which is where they were living, where I should have been born, but there's no hospital there, so they moved me to moved my mum to the nearest one. But although I grew up in Rotherthorpe, in Northamptonshire, till I was about 12, 13, and then from there we moved back to the north coast of Scotland, so as near as you can get to the Orkneys without actually being on them. And we lived in a little town called Borgie, which is part of a sort of larger village called Skerra. So, sorry, I said a town called Borgie. It's basically a road, but yeah, tiny little place. But I lived there. That was all like my teenage years, and then I came back to England and started moving around again. So
you lived with your parents. Did you have brothers, sisters?
I have two older brothers and one foster sister. But there's big age gaps between sort of either side. So I'm the youngest of the three brothers. So the middle one is 9.5 years older than me, or 10 years older than me, and the older one is 11 years older than me. And then in the other direction, my foster sister's like about 11 years, 10, 11 years, I'm never very good with numbers, the other way. So when I was growing up in England, in Rotherthorpe, I always had kind of brothers and sisters, but then when we moved to Scotland, the oldest two had moved out and were doing other things, so it was just me and my foster sister.
So thinking about your childhood and toys, did you have a teddy bear?
I did have a teddy bear. I think I had more than one. I definitely had, because I think it was the era after. A lot of the stuff I had was kind of hand-me-down stuff from my two brothers. So it's kind of like the previous era of toys, I guess. And they were all, and my parents lived on the an island called Egglesay and an island called Sanday through most of the 70s. So even most of the stuff that my parents had my brothers had in the 70s wasn't brand new stuff. it was probably hand-me-downs of other people's families, and there was no little trips to the department store to get the latest in gadget and stuff. So but yeah, sorry, in terms of teddy bears, I think, was it Play School that had like Big Ted and Little Ted? I'm pretty sure I had a Big Ted and Little Ted. Maybe not identical to the ones from Play School, but I definitely remember a big 2-foot size sort of teddy bear, black and white one, that was raggedy and falling to bits, but I absolutely adored it when I was young. And I'm pretty sure I had a little one as well, but I don't remember that quite as well.
So what were they made out of?
I remember the innards of this big thing being the sort of stuff you get in old sofas, the sort of the horrible, almost asbestos-y kind of stuff, and the outer bit was just very, very threadbare. It would have been, I think they would have been, if not handmade, sort of not that mass-produced kind of era that you get now, where everything's kind of like nylon and polyester. I think they would have been more whatever they were made out of, just sort of before that era, because it was, I don't remember it being like a sort of, I know like my younger sister, for instance, had like teddy bears which were kind of quite mass produced and stuff. You could sort of, you'd see the same stuff in the shops kind of thing, whereas like this wasn't like that. This was just some big old cotton thing, I guess, or some sort of fabric. I don't know actually.
Were they furry?
They weren't furry. It probably were furry once. Big Ted probably was furry once, but he was very. He'd very much got that kind of crew cut kind of style kind of thing. There was a million ways I could go with that, and that was my nicest way of putting it. He didn't have a lot of fur left on him by the time I got to him. No.
So how did you come to own it?
I think it probably just got. I think it was probably a hand-me-down thing, because I'm pretty sure it wasn't you when I came to get hold of him. So I'm pretty sure he'd lived through eras with my brothers and the family probably for a good 10, 15 years before I kind of got hold of him, definitely.
And did you play with him?
I think I did a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I probably didn't really do the sort of, without sounding sexist, I probably imagine the more sort of girly thing of having little tea parties with people and stuff. But I do vaguely recall the sort of like playing games because a lot of, at that age, I didn't have like brothers. I had brothers, but they weren't interested. You know, like a 14-year-old wasn't really interested in the things that a 4 or 5-year-old was interested in, or the same tolerance. So when they were babysitting you, it was very much kind of a reluctance thing. So I guess probably a sort of a slight imaginary quality to, this is my little friend, you know, that I'm, whatever I was doing, he would be doing too, you know.
So you'd be playing with him on your own rather than with other people?
Yeah, I think almost certainly. I wouldn't say there was. I mean, I did play with my sort of older brothers, but I wouldn't say there was a massive overlap. I mean, we probably would have other friends round after school and stuff, but probably by the time I was getting like 6 or 7, teddy bears were still around, but they weren't something to be played with. They were just sort of something to be like a comfort blanket, I guess, for when we were upset or whatever reason.
So thinking about, was he called Big Ted?
He distinctly recalled he was called Big Ted, and I think he lasted another 10 years after. I think he wasn't really played with my sister, because I remember she had her own little teddy bears. Distinctly remember those, but he was around definitely for a long, long while. He was, yeah.
So did he get? That was going to be one of my questions. Yeah, what happened to it? So did he get passed on? I think he. I don't think he got like ceremonially, handed over to the next generation, because I think she kind of had her own stuff that she became her like kind of comfort blankets or whatever. But I can sort of remember when I was a teenager up in Scotland, him just still sitting in a chair somewhere in like the living room and just being, I guess probably for my parents' sake, they'd probably seen this teddy bear kind of pass through almost 2 generations of kids, so I guess he was probably quite sentimental to them in a way. I've no idea where he's ended up after that, though, unfortunately. That's what I was going to ask. You obviously don't have him.
I think he had moved. No, I don't have him, and I think he had moved. I think I had moved out before he left home. Put it that way. So.
And how did you feel about him?
Yeah, I mean, I think I say probably about 7, 8 years old. He was definitely a comfort blanket. It's definitely that kind of. I don't remember being one of those kids that sort of necessarily had to go to sleep with a teddy every night. Although my parents would probably tell you differently. But I do remember, when you're really upset, you kind of want certain things around. And he would definitely, at that age, have been one of those things. I mean, the funny thing was, I do remember having another little, what I would call like a more modern kind of mass-produced little black and white teddy bear that came in a Christmas stocking. And I remember distinctly, being when I was 6 or 7, or probably a bit younger than that, being told to tidy up my room and putting this white and black newish teddy bear into a cupboard, and then in my memory going back to the cupboard and him disappearing almost Narnia style just out the back of a cupboard where he should have clearly been. And for that one's obviously been quite traumatising, because for years I was convinced that it would turn up somewhere, this other little teddy bear. I think it kind of just vanished, and probably those 2 memories of it checking the cupboard and putting it in the cupboard were probably months apart. But when you're in childhood, time gets a bit mixed up, doesn't it? So, but yeah, to this day, I still generally wonder where this little missing teddy bear has just vanished somewhere into the ether.
Running off having adventures on its own.
Clearly disappeared through the back of a cupboard.
So, did you play with any dolls?
Not really dolls. Probably more. I did play with your Action Men and robots and Masters of the Universe type He-Men little figures and collected those, but not really dolls. No, it was unless I think probably the only time I crossed paths with dolls was when I was. Sometimes I would because both my mum and dad worked when I was in England. My mum had a job at council, and before going to school, a lot of mornings I would get shoved around somebody else's house, and it always seemed to be some girl's house that I would have to go and be effectively babysat for an hour in the morning, or an hour after, in the evening until 5 o'clock and work was finished. So there was definitely sometimes being around girls with their dollies, but they didn't really hold a lot of interest, I've got to admit.
So you had action men, action figures. You wouldn't have described them as dolls.
I wouldn't have done, really. I guess when I think of dolls, I think of the little sort of babies, effectively, or Cabbage Patch Kids kind of, those kind of size things with the funny eyes that just don't look right and kind of roll in their sockets. And I guess I always think of dolls as more something young girls have pretending to be mums, and which is always weird. 6-7-year-olds who are already wanting to be parents.
So thinking about your action figures, what did you have?
I think everything I had really fell into three camps, and it would have been Star Wars stuff and Star Wars figures, because that was huge at that kind of generation with kids. I think that was one of the first things that they really kind of pushed to kids as a movie tie-in or a TV show tie-in, rather than sort of Action Man or G.I. Joe or whatever. I'm pretty sure I did have an Action Man, but he wasn't as cool as Luke Skywalker, and so he would. Definitely had a few of the Transformers models, because that was another big thing from sort of that 1983, 84, 85, that kind of era. And as I say, the Masters of the Universe, the He-Man stuff, and probably in that order, to be honest with you, by sheer coincidence. I remember with the He-Man figures, I remember being enticed whenever my mum and dad went to do the weekly shop at Tesco's, that when you first walked in, they put all the kids' toys right near the front of the store. So in my mind, every week I was allowed to go and buy a new figure to keep me quiet and stop complaining while they did the shop. I think in reality it was probably like once every 4 or 5 trips to Tesco's, so I probably had 4 or 5 tantrums, and then once in a while I got a new He-Man figure. But I definitely remember it working on that basis, and I'm always coming from the same store. So, yeah.
Okay, thinking about the He-Man figures then, for the benefit of anyone listening to this who's got no idea what they are, can you describe them?
So old now. So you had a cartoon, which I don't know if the cartoon was actually called He-Man, or I think it was called Masters of the Universe. But He-Man was the sort of the star of the show. Was I guess a kind of, from what I remember of that cartoon show, it was kind of your sort of Conan the Barbarian type thing, crossed with a bit of sort of fantasy and a bit of science fiction as well, because you would have this kind of character who had a magical sword, a sort of barbarian type character, wouldn't you? And then but some of his team of sort of good guys seemed to have slightly more high-tech weapons, and sort of, I think there might be the odd laser and kind of things flying around. I might be remembering that wrongly, or might have just been sort of fantasy, sparks and magic and what have you. But yeah, I always got the impression it was set somewhere in the sort of future or off in space. I think rather than just being an old sort of medieval King Arthurian type fantasy thing. But yeah, I think they had the TV show, and every week they'd probably have an extra new character, either good or bad, show up, which the episode would be based around, and then probably in a few weeks or after that figure would be in the shops. So all the kids would want that figure because it was the latest, coolest one, and all the parents would despair and just think, how is he really that different from the ones they've got already? So, but obviously when you're 5 years old, it's very important that you have the exact one.
So how did you play with them?
There was definitely it was. With that, it was definitely like playing toy soldiers. It was definitely like you'd have little scenarios where you'd have the goodies and the baddies, and perhaps the goodies had to go and rescue somebody who was trapped. And I remember with those figures that they would be played with on my own, but they would also be played with when friends came over after school, because I guess it being that era, because I remember having a He-Man lunchbox as well, come to think of it. But I think if you're when you had friends after school, they would bring their ones over, so it'd almost be like the 70s, an old sticker, or 80s when you had swaps and stickers, and you'd be trying to get, the duplicates or whatever. You'd like, if your friend had one of the ones that you didn't have, you'd quite want him to come round just so you could play with that one, and vice versa,
So how did you feel about them? Were they important?
They were very important. Yeah, I think that was probably. It's funny because when I got older, I was like I gave all the Star Wars ones away. Even though I love Star Wars, I had a friend that loved Star Wars even more and was quite happy to just give him all my Star Wars ones. I was probably getting a bit older and wasn't really playing with them anymore. But the Transformers stuff, I have no idea where that went. And for years I was quite sulky that I didn't keep it, because I still felt quite strongly that I wanted those kind of things. So, I think that was one of the major, like the He-Man figures and stuff, I was quite attached to. I remember when like the next big cartoon came in, probably about 86, 87, and Thundercats was a big thing to hit. And all the other kids in my school loved Thundercats, and they loved the cartoon, and all the figures came out, and He-Man was just passé, it was old hat. And I was the other way. It's probably like the first time in my life where, setting the tone for the rest of my life, that the old stuff was better than the new stuff, and I didn't like change, even as a 6-year-old. And I remember going around a friend's house, and he used to have a suitcase just full of every He-Man figure in the world. And then one day he didn't. One day his suitcase was just full of his parents had bought him all these Thundercats figures, and I was just, it's not good. It's not the thing. We need to keep the He-Man figures. So,
I assume you don't still have them.
I don't have any of them. I'm trying to think if I have any of those type of things at all. I occasionally see, if you go into some of the, especially in Brighton, like Snoopers, and you go into sort of the collectors kind of shops and toy shops, I do occasionally see the Star Wars figures, and kind of wish I'd kept them, but not really. I wish I'd kept them just because they were mine, not because of the value attached to them. And occasionally I'll be tempted just to go and pick one up, just because it's something that I knew that I had before, so it feels like it was part of me. I wouldn't necessarily be buying like a figure now to play with it, for instance, but I wouldn't necessarily be buying them for value or to collect them either. It'd be more just like to reattach the memory from childhood, So.
Can you remember what happened to your figures? Did you give them away, or
the Star Wars ones definitely got given away? Because I definitely had like the X-wing and various little ships and stuff as well. The Transformers ones, as I say, I think they may have just got broken and thrown away. By that's probably where a lot of my toys went. They probably just got thrown away by Mum when I wasn't looking. And then I got something new that distracted me, and so I didn't really notice until a year later. That's probably what happened with a teddy bear. I don't really know about the He-Man figures because I had an awful lot of those, and they wouldn't have been the sort of thing that was handed down to the next generation. They definitely weren't handed down to my sister. Perhaps they may well have been like passed on again by parents more by me to like younger other kids, friends of the family's kids kind of coming through and stuff. But then with the He-Man stuff and the 80s Master Universe stuff, it was quite tacky and plastic, and so a lot of it probably just broke or expired. It didn't look like stuff that was built to last. That was probably part of their agenda, make it so it breaks so somebody will go and buy a new one.
So if I asked you what your best memory of your He-Man figures was, have you got a particular memory of them?
I don't know if I will for the... I can't think of like any really specific scenarios or such. I can remember like certain little toys. I think there was a character in He-Man, I can't remember what his name, somebody would know, which was like a... I think he was like a little floating wizard. Like he was pretty funny. It was like a sort of half-size, almost like dwarf-size character, but he had no feet. He had a big red hat. Genuine, I'm not making this up. He had a big red hat, and he had a sort of red cloak on, and I think he had a big black circle. And he didn't really have a face. It was kind of like a dark shadow with eyes. But I remember this being the toy I wanted for an awful long time. I'm sure of this. And I might be getting this mixed up with another figure, but there was definitely one that Whereas most of them just had the only action they had was an arm that you would pull back and it'd spring forward, or you'd twist a waist and the waist would flick round. This one particular one had, it was like not a rod, but almost like a sort of a cable, effectively, with teeth through the middle of it, on a sort of ring pull, and you would pull it very quickly, and it would make the character spin off really quickly. It'd be like a sort of more crazier movement. So if I had one prized memory, it would be definitely acquiring that figure and just constantly playing with this ring pull and making this thing just dance off. And it may be a completely different character to the one I've named, and I've probably just mixed up memories. But yeah, I guess I'd have to offer that, because I can't really think of any really particular scenarios. I always liked things that moved a lot. Like I had a little, not so much I don't guess it was a kind of action figure. It was like a sort of Evel Knievel type biker motorbike thing that you would pull back, and it would, build up the energy or the spring or whatever, and you would let it go and it would just shoot off into the distance. And things that always did that and crashed were always quite appealing.
Okay, so construction toys.
What, more destructive toys? But then you put them back together afterwards, which is quite constructive.
Construction toys.
Construction
Did you
toys.
play with any of those?
I definitely played construction toys, because we had Lego. I remember having a big metal, probably just like one of those quality sweet tins, but it might have been even bigger, just full of Lego, and it was not like specific sets. It was just random bits of Lego. But I also remember having a fair bit to start with of Meccano, which was, again, both of them were sort of hand-me-down items, and they definitely would have come down from my brothers. I think my older brother was a bit more into Meccano than I was. I always... Probably more the case that I probably got it too young. So Lego, where you're just sticking bricks together, was a lot more simple than toying with little spanners on tiny little nuts and bolts. Even now, I love the idea of Meccano. It's a shame it's not, everywhere and in the shops and teaching kids to be young engineers and stuff. But I think I probably got put off it a little bit by getting given it all at the same time, necessarily. But I had an awful lot of Lego and built an awful lot of things out of Lego.
So where did your Lego come from? Was it bought for you, or was it handed down?
It was a bit of both, definitely. I mean, I think I remember sort of the Meccano, the Lego, and a big box of kind of like farm toys and sheep and cows and bales, little plastic bales of hay and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure all of that must have been second, if not kind of third generation by the time it got to me. But I definitely also remember getting bought different bits of Lego, whether it was just blocks of Lego or specific things, when I was young. And I can remember when I was, I think probably 10 or 11, towards the end of the 80s, when I guess Lego probably got their act together a bit and started to get a bit more savvy. They put out this thing called Lego Technic, which was more like the Meccano of Lego, I guess. It was a little bit more fiddly and a little bit more advanced, and they would have these really expensive looking things that were probably like £200-300 with little computers in them that you could kind of, the adverts would make it look like you could program them on the computers to be little robots and such like that. And I would have definitely got bought some of that, not the really expensive stuff. I would have been envious of friends that I know. I can remember actually one friend getting this big £200 plastic car that we all wanted, or something like that. But I don't. It's funny, looking back, I'm quite happy to have just had all the standard building blocks, because then you actually had to be creative with what you made. You weren't just making something to a pattern, which seems to ruin the point of it a lot to me.
So, how did you play with it? What did you make? What did you do once you'd made it?
What did I make? I would have made little cars. Definitely, always trying to make little sports cars and things. I would have made planes out of planes and rockets and such. And I think just generally sort of houses and bits of castles. And it's funny, a lot of the stuff I would have made with Lego would have interacted with the He-Man figures, because I wouldn't have necessarily been bought the big expensive Castle Grayskull skull, or what. It was Grayskull, wasn't it? I don't know where that memory came from. But I would have then gone, right, well, what can I do to, sort of add to this? And I would have made like little houses and put them on little different levels and stuff. I think I was probably quite a little junior architect with my Lego, actually. I was quite into it. And I was very fiddly about the colours as well. I always hated, and even to this day, I think James May did the programme when he built the Lego house a few years ago, and they just kind of built the walls all higgledy-piggledy with like red bricks and blue bricks and white bricks, and I wouldn't do that. I had to have, if I had a wall, the wall all had to be, say, white, or all had to be blue all the way around. And if I didn't have enough blocks, but I had, say, a white block that would have finished the house in the blue wall, the white block wouldn't go in. The house would just get rebuilt into something else. I did have enough bricks to make it. All had to. There was definitely a graphic design element to my, even at a young age, to building with Lego, definitely.
So how important was your Lego to you?
Lego was probably my favourite thing. Yeah, just because Lego and toy cars were probably my favourite actual physical toys. Lego just because it was so versatile, and but I think even as adults, there's still a sort of special affection for the ability just to click things into place, and it's kind of, I guess I didn't realise it when I was a kid, but it's that therapeutic thing of putting things in order, isn't it? Which, it's probably as an adult why it still appeals to us, and it's still quite a nice nostalgic memory. But yeah, definitely Lego was a big thing.
Do you still have it?
Funny enough, I don't. That's the thing, and I often think about buying bits of Lego just for the reasons that I've just discussed, just to have a few things to click around. But no, I think the Lego was definitely something that would have been passed on to my sister, because I can remember the little tin of Lego being in her kind of bedroom. But I mean, the thing I guess with me is probably when I sort of moved up to Scotland and I was 13, 14. A lot of the traditional toys, I guess, were getting replaced by things like computer games and such things. And then when I moved out, I moved quite a distance away, so I wouldn't have been taking a lot of stuff with me, sort of apart from things like computer games, maybe board games and such. And so it kind of, I probably do have actually, or I have, or my parents have in possession, certain of these heirlooms still kicked around, because I constantly get around by my parents, when am I going to come to the house and pick up all the rubbish that's still being retained in the shed, rotting away, and I always get told, when are you going to come pick it up? And then I get told, oh, it probably needs to be thrown out anyway because it'll all be rotten and it's been in the back of the shed. But whenever I go up at Christmas or I go to visit, it's always at the back of the shed, so you can't get to it. so one day maybe I haven't thrown some of this stuff out. Maybe Big Ted or the missing teddy bear is going to materialise 20 years later.
So, what are your best memories of Lego? If you had to pick something, anything in particular?
See, I think I've probably answered that. I think it's probably building things, but the overriding memory was the detail of how something had to be perfect, or I wouldn't necessarily want to finish it. But saying that, I would still much rather build. Definitely remember, I would always much rather building something to my own design, not in a I'm going to set out to build this particular thing that's in my head. It would be built as I was piecing bits in. So you would take bits out, trying to find the thing that was most pleasing to yourself, kind of thing. But yeah, I definitely always preferred building things for me rather than what was on an instructional bit of paper. Even if it was a kit or something like that, the first time you'd build it, and you would build it as it says, and then that would probably only last about 5 minutes before you started thinking, how can I, what can I do with this? What can I make with this, with these same blocks?
So, did you ever want a teddy bear or a doll or action figure or a construction toy that you couldn't have?
I think probably. See, probably an awful lot, to be fair honest with you. I always get told by my parents that I was the spoiled one, because both my parents were working when I was a kid, whereas my two older brothers had to make them do with what they had on the islands of Orkney. But I guess sort of the counter to that is that because I was going to a primary school in England with a lot of other kids, I was seeing what all they had. and in my head, my parents still had the mentality of probably their spending budgets for toys were probably what they had for my older brothers in the 70s, and rather than what was arguably, in my eyes at the time, realistic for a kid in the 80s. But I don't feel I missed out particularly on anything. The only thing that I guess, and I think I mentioned it earlier, was I remember in the early 90s Lego bringing out this huge box of this Lego Technic, which was like a big red car made out that was it just looked amazing. And I think it had a little computer in it, maybe a little motor in it or something like that, which just seemed, even though Meccano had motors and stuff like that, somehow my brain didn't click that Lego doing it wasn't a new thing, because Meccano had already done it. They managed to sell it to us kids, maybe because of its exotic price tag, as just something amazing that we all kind of wanted. And yeah, I definitely never got the big expensive car, but I don't feel too gutted about it.
So, are there any other memories of teddy bears, dolls, construction toys that you haven't mentioned that you want to?
I think. I don't. Maybe it'll qualify as a doll, but we're going back to full circle to teddy bears and comfort blankets. I remember having this. It's probably something off a TV series again. There was a thing called. It was a glowworm. Basically, it was like a little plastic 2-inch. Probably looks quite phallic in hindsight. Kind of little green, sort of luminous green glowworm with a sleeping cap on. And it was a purple. I think mine was purple, sort of mauvey kind of purple, and a sort of similar coloured tunic. And I had this thing when I was very little, and I loved the fact that when I went to sleep, it would glow green. That was really, really comforting. And we used to go up to Scotland, back to the Orkney Islands, when all the other kids were jetting off to Disneyland or Lanzarote. We go back to the Orkneys, which at the time I couldn't really, again, wasn't really fond of as a kid, but I sound like such a little brat, I probably was. I always remember going on trains. You would have on the sleeper train up, you'd have the little blue night light that would come on, and anything when I was asleep in the night that had a little bluey neon kind of light or green light or whatever was fantastic. So this glowworm, I absolutely adored this thing, and that went missing for absolutely years. And then that turned up when I was probably about 17, 18, 19, and I distinctly remember keeping it for years and years and years. Wouldn't be taking it to bed, but it wasn't being, having been lost for 10 years, it wasn't going anywhere fast again after that. So I'm trying to think, because I haven't really spoke about specific scenarios and things. Oh, probably playing toy soldiers. I had a big box. That was another probably hand-me-down tin thing, but that was one thing where I would interact with my middle brother, because I distinctly remember us building, just laying out armies and armies and armies of plastic little little throwaway tacky kind of plastic soldiers, and positioning them around the room in different kind of battalions, and then conjuring up some way we would have some little toy battle with them. I think probably involving rolling a marble into your opponent's kind of, or throwing a marble or whatever. And I remember doing that all over the house. So that's one that I definitely remember interacting with my brother a lot around those. Those definitely. And I guess they were probably the precursor to playing strategy battle games on computers as well. I mean, it's a lot of those things are the same things that you did as the toys, and the sporting simulations are the same thing as playing football. It's just a slightly lazier way of doing it, or a way to do it when it's rainy and there's no one else to play with. It's a way of having more competition, I suppose, isn't it? So.
I have to ask, I'm trying to visualise this glowworm.
This glowworm?
Are we talking furry?
No, plastic. Firm, hard piece of plastic, which is why I mentioned about the phallicness of it. With a little knobbly head that was slightly bigger than the rest of the body. And it had a little hole in the bottom you could put your finger up inside.
Okay, thank you for sharing that.
And on that bombshell.
So is that it? Is there anything else you want to say?
I feel I should try and prove that this glowworm existed and wasn't just like something I found in the back of my mum's drawer or something.
Oh dear.
I think that's probably all I can come up with. I mean, I played with the Star Wars stuff a lot. You know, recreating bits of the movies with friends. You would do that. So it'd be probably less imagination involved in those. But yeah, it's funny now you ask the question. I'm kind of disappointed that I can't actually think of specific events. I kind of feel like I should have. I'm sure I played with these things enough that they should be. But I remember the items. I don't really remember stories around them. I wonder if part of that's because I ended up playing with a lot of them on my own rather than necessarily interacting with other people. And so I think generally perhaps your memories are of things you do with other people, and necessarily things that you do by yourself are just passing the time a lot of the time until you get to the other people. Don't know, maybe not.
Maybe. It's interesting how memory works anyway. Anyway, if you've run out of things, I'll press stop.
Yeah, I think I have.